Hey, beautiful human. Welcome to episode 5 of From Chaos to Cozy, where we're on an amazing journey gaining clarity around our chaos and how to see our cozy more clearly. In the last episode, we began talking about the 3 buckets where we experience our human lives to see what tools and awareness the Creator gave me to help me with them. Those 3 buckets are relationships, situations, and things. And we started with relationships. We left off talking about the fun experience of someone going outside the agreed upon boundaries of the relationship, aka being cheated on. I had drawn in unfaithful individuals because of the fear energy that I inherited from my mom's experiences. And I knew all of this before I came down to the planet. And somehow, knowing that I had chosen it for myself let me be less dramatic about it later. So maybe the question I asked myself when I first discovered this is what you're asking right now. Why on God's green earth would I choose to experience these painful events? And are these painful because they are, or because I've been taught that they're supposed to be painful? And I was surprised at the answer, as it was so simple and made total sense. Spirit answered within my mind and shared that our soul has been around for a very, very long time. There's no real measurement of time on the other side, but there is a knowing of existence being measured through experiences. And after existing for so long, we got even more curious than we already were. So discovering more about who we are, we thought it would be interesting to witness the opposite of who we are. And that meant creating this realm, and especially this planet, where we forget who we really are for a moment and let the fear of the human take over and have it create lower vibrational experiences. From our viewpoint of our human side, these lower vibrational emotions do feel very uncomfortable because we're not used to feeling them. They're the opposite of who we really are, so we may feel like a fish out of water when we're experiencing them a ton and in extremes. But from our higher self's perspective, it's more like playing an exciting video game, knowing that it's not our true reality, that it's made, it's like this made-up game where we have an avatar that we select to experience different dramatic scenarios and adventures. And when an avatar dies or is killed, it isn't a real death. We can click start and play again as the same avatar or a different one. And usually we choose a different one because we want as many different experiences as we can experience. And then, are these experiences truly painful? And as human children, as we're growing up, we're given a lot of popular opinion of what things are supposed to mean, how they're supposed to feel, etc. And as children, raising children, we don't always get things, quote, right. We kind of made everything up as we went along, at least in the human mind and in the human world. Our hearts can never be broken, our true hearts. They are eternal and they're powerful. But we do come down here to experience fear and what it might feel like to have our hearts broken. A huge aha for me was realizing that the emotional pain I thought I was feeling was actually my heart feeling pricked as it went into fight or flight mode out of fear. And you know how it is when like a sibling jumps out and scares you to death, where your heart feels like it drops in your chest or that panic feeling sets in. And the same happens when we have an emotional monster that jumps out and scares us. That emotional monster can feel like, I'm not lovable, I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, I'll never find love again. Do they sound familiar? And the moment the event happens with that other person, a fear about lovability, failure, or rejection hits, and we go into that fight or flight. And when our siblings scared us, when we realized it was them and we weren't in real danger, the feeling left and we calmed down, right? But with emotional monsters, it can be a bit different because we don't feel out of danger right away. The prick in our hearts seems to loop over and over again until we get distracted with something else or we go to sleep. Then it stops, right? Then, when we remember the event, we go back into the loop again, that heart-breaking feeling. Eventually, it seems we either stuff those feelings down and try to forget the event only to have it come up again with another mirror that comes into our lives, or we dance with our shadow to get to the root of the lie about our lovability that's sparking the fear. We'll talk more about ways to transform those small t truths rooted in fear into capital T truth, wisdom, and knowledge throughout this podcast. So let's talk about the unnatural selection. That's what I'm calling it. And like we did in the last episode with our parents, we can also look at the relationships that we've had and have in our lives to see why we selected them and they selected us before we came down here. Everyone is a mirror reflecting back to us what we want to see about ourselves. So I had 5 longest-term relationships. I count them anywhere between 1 and 3 years. So let me just briefly go through the 5 and as an example, right? So relationship 1 lasted 3 years. And I used to be all about the work. And then if there was time left over, which there seldom was, then I could play. My first relationship taught me to realize what is important and what is truly urgent, and that everything I thought needed to be done right now didn't have to be. They drew me more to the center, and I drew them more to the center as well. They tended to be all play, and if there was time left over, to do the important. And so there was this balance and this awareness that I didn't have to get everything done with that. It's also when I had my first huge heartbreak. They always say the first cut is the deepest. They were the first one that went outside of the relationship, out of the, boundaries. Now, relationship number 2, that lasted a year. And this relationship taught me that I tended to give up all my life and self for that one who was special in my life. I moved out of state, leaving my job, a lot of my possessions, and my friends all behind. I gave everything up for love. And I think it's a great idea to do that once. And again, this one, the second relationship, they always, not always, but they went outside of the relationship as well. And then I went into relationship number 3, which lasted 3 years. So 3 years, 1 year, and then back to 3 years. And this was the last of my relationships that I moved in with. I used to move in with a person I was in a relationship with fast because I had a huge mistrust. And if I was embedded in their lives, or I thought at least, then I could spot if they were cheating on me. And then they might also become more dependent on me. I know. Sounds super healthy, right? But they taught me about manipulation. Not them doing it to me, but how I was caught in the pattern of doing it myself and allowing it to be done to me by others. The human manipulation process, it's been handed down to us from generation to generation, and it's used by most humans across the world sometime in their life. And that is that when things aren't going the way we thought that they are supposed to be going, then we go to, we'll call it DEFCON 1, which we'll call the sad Z's. That's acting sad and down and hurt, depressed, even crying because we aren't getting our way. And, we're taught that other people's emotions are our responsibility. So we, can get manipulated that way because, like with mom and dad, it's like, oh, you made mom sad. Oh, you made dad mad. We're like, oh, I'm responsible for their emotions. And that's why we can get manipulated into doing that, because we're taught that, oh, their sadness and their poor me is my fault. And we don't want that to be blamed for that, right? So if the SADZs, DEFCON 1 doesn't work, then we move to DEFCON 2, which I call the bully. And that's when people get angry, upset, throwing things around, slamming things, even sometimes to the point of hitting or maybe even physical abuse. And if that doesn't work, then we move to DEFCON 3, which is what most humans fear, the rejection. Hanging up on someone, not answering their text back, ghosting them, walking out of the room. And if we live with someone, maybe giving them the cold shoulder, holding back intimacy and all that fun stuff. And if that doesn't work, then we'll move back to DEFCON 1 and loop it, saying how sad and hurt we are that when we rejected them, they didn't chase after us. How much of that sounds familiar to you? And how often have you experienced that being expressed towards you? And how often have you expressed that to someone else? It can be so revealing, right? So in my relationship with number 3, they brought it to my attention when I was doing the SADZs by holding their hands out and like in a cup and telling me to cry a handful, or asking me if I was going to ride that pouty lip to town. I can laugh at it now, but wow, did it feel like a slap in the face back then, which it did wake me up. And they also pointed out my insecurities and wouldn't stand for it. Like if I saw 2 glasses in the sink or an extra towel having been used in the bathroom, I'd ask them what it was about, in a way accusing them of having had someone over at, their apartment when I wasn't there. So this relationship really showed me my insecurities, and they threatened me into going to counseling. Basically, they said that this kind of insecurity wasn't going to fly for them, and if I didn't go to therapy and get it figured out, we were done. So I went, and I'm so glad I did, and I'll chat more about my therapy sessions in future episodes too. And then that ended, and we ended up, and I don't believe they were unfaithful to me. They just, there was some other things going on with that, just disrespectful treatment and things that eventually it was just like, I'm out. But relationship number 4 came around right after it, and that was lasted a year. So 3-year, 1 year, 3-year, 1 year, starting to see a pattern, right? But my next relationship was in a way an extension of my therapy, because they were in the process of obtaining their master's degree in counseling to become a licensed counselor. So we talked through a lot of my past, and the poor soul got to listen to me as I processed a bunch of my past pain with them. They had come out of a 7-year relationship. Of course, I had come just out of a 3-year relationship, and neither of us wanted to jump into a relationship with anyone. We enjoyed each other's company, and even though my head knew we weren't in a relationship, that heart was not in the loop, evidently. So we were quickly spending every night together, either at their place or mine, and we found ourselves in a relationship anyway. But the heart ached and was in pain when they informed me that there was someone they wanted to sleep with that was visiting from overseas that they'd been talking to for a while. And though I understood in my mind that we were not in a relationship and we talked about all this before, my heart was devastated. They wanted to have a kind of open relationship, and though I tried to give that a go, I realized that wasn't for me. And because of their connection with so many different people that I got to meet and see different types of relationships, I learned that relationships weren't as restricted and defined as I had learned that they were supposed to be. It really opened my eyes and my mind to the roles that I had that were rooted in fear. So there was great freedom and release and open-mindedness with all of that. And we drifted apart, and then I was single for 3 years. 3 years, 1 year, 3 year, 1 year. I'm like single and not in a relationship for 3 years. And I was glad that I had broken that pattern of what I apparently is called serial monogamy, where you leap from relationship to relationship as they keep ending without looking into why they're ending and repeating the cycles. And maybe I was a slow learner, or maybe I just wanted to learn the lesson really, really well, the hard way, like what most of us like to learn. So I hung around with people here and there, but vowed not to seek a relationship as I reflected on my journaling that I had done for 5 years or so. And that's when I noticed patterns of feeling good about who I was and then disappearing as I dove into a relationship. And it's very revealing to see your thoughts and feelings as you go in and out of relationships. And all of that, along with the professional and my stolen therapy sessions from relationship number 4, I was changing on the inside. And then relationship number 5 appeared out of nowhere. It lasted a year. I'm back to my 3-1-3-1-3-1. But I didn't have the mistrust issues I had before, and many of my fears had dissipated in regards to relationships. So it was effortless, funny, and it was a great relationship. They were looking to move out of state to pursue their education, and I went with them to visit the city as they interviewed for the limited master's program that they had. And I was sitting alone in an apartment of a friend of theirs while they were off doing their thing and their friend was at work. So I was sitting there by myself, and it hit me that this would be my life since they would be working and going to school and be in shows. They were an actor, so they'd be so busy, right? And that's when it hit me, and I realized there was something I was supposed to remember from relationship number 2. That's right, only move out of state for someone once. So they ended up not getting accepted at that point into that master's program, but they were still planning on moving with a friend of theirs to that city because they were going to keep trying. And it was different for me to not give in to what someone else was wanting for their life. That impacted me. I told them that I didn't feel like the city that they were moving to was for me. I didn't feel energy drawing me there. And they hoped I wouldn't be upset if they still went. And I told them, well, as long as you're not upset that I'm not going to go. So we decided just keep things going as they were, keep dating as they were, up until the time that they were going to be leaving. And during that time, they were working like crazy, saving up money, working a few jobs, and I hardly saw them. And I learned in this relationship to appreciate and then prefer my alone time. I fell in love with me. What? I know. Part of that was facing these feelings. That number 5 was trying to fit me in between the important things in their life. To find out that they were a mirror for me. I ended up asking myself the question, how was I trying to fit myself in between what I thought were the important things in life? So revealing, I know. And that's what happens when we're able to take a big, deep breath and step back from our relationships to see them for the mirrors that they are. In retrospect, when I was doing my shadow work, Spirit asked what I learned from the situations where the individuals were unfaithful or didn't choose me. And at first, I answered, well, it means people are douchebags. I used a different word, but, I got to keep it YouTube friendly. But Spirit laughed with me, well, maybe kind of at me at first, but then they clarified by pointing out that if everyone is a mirror showing me what I want to see about myself until I see it, what was it mirroring back to me? And I defended myself out of fear, of course, that I had never, ever cheated on any of them. I was the one who would usually commit too much, too fast, right? But Spirit is so gentle and kind, and they kindly stepped me through what they were trying to reveal to me. And they explained that if others are a mirror for me, and they were cheating on me or not choosing me, how was I cheating on myself or not choosing myself? To which I replied, huh? And then they continued, so if you were looking outside of yourself for your self-worth, defining yourself and your worthiness by their actions, then is it possible you were cheating on your capital S self with those humans? And boom, yeah, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And this is where I realized the difference between capital S self-worth and retail price. We find our self-worth by turning inward and upward, connecting with our higher self, which is the conduit for accessing the eternal, unconditional love that comes from the Creator and all those beings of unconditional love and light on the other side. And they deem us priceless. Retail price, on the other hand, is what I call it when we look to outside of ourselves, to the human world, to determine our value. It's what we feel we are worth to others by their actions and their words, or when they don't act or don't say the things that we're wanting them to do and say to us. The thing about the retail price of the outside world, though, is that it is fickle, unstable, ever-changing depending on the person, the season, and other events happening in the outside world. So you can be a parka coat, really warm, beautiful parka coat in northern Alaska during the winter, and you're going to be highly sought after, maybe even marked up in price. But when you are that same parka coat on a tropical island on the equator during the summer, you're going to end up on the Kmart blue light special rack, or even worse, end up being donated to Goodwill. So with my self-worth and my self-love reignited, I broke my pattern of 3 years, 1 year, 3 years, 1 year, 3 years single, 1 year, and now I have been in the best relationship of my life for over a decade. With me. That's why I named this episode, It's Complicated. It's like when you update your relationship status on Facebook or social media, it is complicated. It's different, definitely different than from what the entire world normally, looks at. It is a journey coming back from low self-worth because of the retail price, and it is a big part of our journey from chaos to cozy. We choose all these human characters we're going to interact with in our lives to experience what we want to experience. Having these teachers who will continually show us over and over and over again what we want to see about ourselves until we see it. I had 5 significant longish term relationships, and they were all telling me the same thing until I saw it. And we'll continue to talk about the things Spirit has shown me that has helped me on my path, and my hope is that some of it might make your path a little easier. So let's talk here about opinion. And we might spend a great amount of energy wondering what other people think about us. How do they feel about us? What do we mean to them? and all that fun stuff, right? And I've given thousands of card readings in my lifetime, in this lifetime, that center around this. It's a lot of people's questions. And there's been some common themes, and I'm going to just talk about 3 of them for the remainder of this episode. And number 1 is we don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. So what we think we see out there isn't quite what's really happening. Investigating the beliefs of the Kabbalah, depending on how you pronounce it, I came across an amazing little tidbit of information regarding our perceptions. And they were talking about how we take in billions of amounts of information every second. Through all our 5 senses, what we're hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, we're getting all of this inundated into our brain, and it's stored in our brains, but only a very small percentage of it is processed in our conscious brain to provide us information. Which means that we really don't have a clear picture of what's going on out there in the physical world. And they shared that because of this, we instinctively start developing our 6th senses to be able to pick up more information from the higher realms who do see things more clearly from their vantage point. And we're conditioned with a great amount of opinion growing up that influences what we think we are seeing. And that's why when there's an event that happens in the outside world, if you ask 10 different people who attended, you'll get 10 flavors of the story of what was perceived. So we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are with everything that's going on inside of us. The second thing is that we identify in others only that which exists somehow within ourselves. Because of that mirroring effect we've been talking about that we are for each other, a majority of what we pick up on when interacting with other individuals are the characteristics we recognize within ourselves. That means if I recognize greatness in someone, I have that greatness somehow in me too. It also means that when someone appears to be irritating me, it's because I recognize that same irritation within myself. Now, Byron Katie, it's Byron, last name Katie, Katie, at least that's the name she goes by, she has a transformative process that she calls The Work. It's a great source with some great tools on how to recognize how our feelings really are all about us. And you can check out, she has a YouTube channel under her name, Byron Katie, and also she has a website, thework.com, just THEWORK.com, and she offers a lot of free content. And it changed my life. That's why I bring it up, because she gives you so much clear information and examples. And her YouTube channel, you see people who are converting their beliefs. They're crying one moment and 5 minutes later they're laughing at their beliefs that were creating this chaos, right? So it really helps with our journey from chaos to cozy, and I highly recommend those things. And she has a book too, Loving What Is, some great things there. And then number 3, outer opinion is unstable. It fluctuates depending on the other person's feelings about themselves, what's going on in their lives, and even how they're feeling physically, right? And as I mentioned earlier, we are all mirrors for each other. So, when a lion looks in the mirror, they're going to see a lion. When a monkey sees a monkey, when a monkey looks, it sees a monkey. When a giraffe looks in the mirror, sees a giraffe, and when a vampire looks in the mirror, it sees no reflection, because vampires don't have reflections, right? But just all that to say, whoever is looking in the mirror is going to see themselves. And so when other people's opinions of us are going to be fluctuating based on everything that's going on there. And that's why I love the meme that says, what other people think or feel about us is none of our business. And it's so true, because what others' opinion of us is so much about what is going on in their inner world of that individual person. And we give away our power when we allow others' opinions to define us. And as we step into these future episodes, we're going to look at ways how we can reclaim that power. And in the next episode, we're going to continue our journey looking at common themes that impact us in our interactions with humans as we talk about the power of choice, and also how individuals tend to respond to the feelings of low self-worth when we're interacting with each other. So until next time, remember, every second of every moment of our lives that we are eternally and unconditionally loved by the Mother and the Father of all things, our Creator. And of course, I love you too. So hang in there, take care of you, and we'll see you soon.